I'm Tori McKenna. I'm the Director of Alumni and Parent Engagement at the college. This is our keynote conversation of our 10-day virtual reunion program. So for those who have been following along with us for a few days, thank you. And to those who are joining for the first piece of the virtual reunion experience, we're thrilled to have you here. So I have the pleasure of welcoming and introducing our very own distinguished Camel President Katherine Bergeron. So President Bergeron, thank you so much for being here to speak with these inspiring women, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tori. And hello, everyone. And congratulations, reunion classes. Really, it's wonderful to be with you tonight for this panel called Camel Women of Influence. Joining us this evening are 5 extraordinary CC women who have excelled in their lives and careers beyond Connecticut College. They represent a range of expertise, from passionate entrepreneurs to innovators to savvy business people to leading philanthropists. And tonight, we're going to explore, in a way, the ingredients of their success, how they became influential in their field, and how they hope to influence future generations. So we have with us the Vice President of a global corporate bank, a Chief Marketing Officer of an online learning company, a CEO of a nonprofit educational organization supporting access and excellence for the best and brightest, whatever their circumstances, a managing director of a venture capital firm, and the founder and CEO of a global nonprofit organization empowering women to inspire change through their philanthropy. You are a very impressive group of women. I'm eager for our Zoom audience to hear from you and to learn from you. And I'm not going to do a global introduction at this point. I'm going to introduce you one at a time as I pose my questions to you. And then I'm going to turn to the Zoom audience, who I'm sure will have some questions of their own. So I'm going to ask people, feel free to use the chat function at any time. I think Tori will be monitoring that behind the scenes, and we'll get through as many comments and questions as we can toward the end of the session. So let's start. And I want to begin with Wendy Steele from the class of 1985. So Wendy, 20 years ago, in 2001, you launched an enterprise that you call Impact 100 in response to a feeling that women could do much more with and through philanthropy, that women's philanthropic participation needed to be encouraged more and their roles needed to be expanded more. And since then, you have influenced thousands of women across the world to make a difference by empowering them to transform communities through giving. To date, this is amazing. Over $80 million has been donated through Impact 100 to causes across the globe. So Wendy, I read with great interest the value statement on Impact 100's website, which says, "We believe in the collaboration and empowerment of diverse women to lead transformational change in their communities." So can you unpack that statement for us? First, tell us what it means in practical terms, and then tell us how it has influenced the success of Impact 100 over the last 20 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, President Bergeron, for that lovely introduction. That value statement really is the crux of Impact 100. What I realized back in the summer of 2001 was that women didn't feel that there was a viable path for them to truly get involved in their community. And what I also knew is that not only did the community need what these women had to offer, but they themselves would benefit if they understood that they had enough, they were enough, and that what they gave would make a real impact. Mm-hmm. After hearing from women over the course of several years, all the reasons, all the barriers they saw, one by one, I went to eliminate them. And that's how Impact 100 is designed. The reason that we talk about bringing these diverse women together is that impact is a very local model that has expanded globally. And in this 20th year, we believe we're going to surpass $100 million in philanthropic impact, $1,000 at a time, from women, many of whom made their very first contribution of $1,000 when they joined Impact 100, in large part because they just didn't see themselves that way. They didn't see themselves as part of the solution. And when we bring vast, diverse voices, all trying to solve the same problem around a table, what we know to be true is that we get better outcomes, we get better decision, we get more robust conversation, connections are made that never would have been made before, the community gets better, and then we get better as philanthropists. And that's the intent of everything we do.
Wow, that's fabulous. So just tell me a little bit, just take us through the path. What would, if I wanted to join Impact 100, what would I do?
Well, I would first say thank you and love you to join Impact 100. So what would happen is typically in a community, a group of women come together, and it often starts with just one. I'll take you back to Cincinnati, which is where Impact 100 was founded. I had moved there after living in New England for a good long time. And Cincinnati has a really low cost of living, but lots of high paying jobs. And yet, not as many women as I expected to see involved in philanthropy, involved in their community. And so what I did is I gathered the brightest women I could find who knew things I didn't know and who were willing to speak the truth, to have a conversation. There's nothing worse in my mind than building a leadership team with people who look at the person at the head of the table and nod and yes and agree and support. And so that was not this group. This was not my closest friends. These were really capable, bright women. And each one of us brought a different skill. So as a member, your commitment is simply the $1,000 donation. If you choose to get involved, you can get involved. And one of the best ways to do that is to serve on our focus area committee. We are women funding community, not necessarily women funding women and girls. So you can choose from environment, health and wellness, education, arts and culture, or family. And if you choose to serve on those committees as a member, you'll be trained how to review a grant application, how to do a site visit, how to score and assess each one of the nonprofit applications. Through that focus area team, the members narrow it down to one finalist in each focus area. We then send an executive summary of those amazing organizations and the work they propose to do with a grant of $100,000, at which point, whether you've been involved intimately throughout the process or whether you wrote your check and haven't done another thing, it is one woman, one donation, one vote. Those 5 finalists make a presentation and members vote, and the highest vote getter receives the grant, typically paid over the course of 24 to 36 months. In our first year in Cincinnati, 123 women came together. We gave a grant of $123,000 to the McMicken Dental Clinic, which was a local dental clinic for the homeless and uninsured. From that point, I would tell you that there are chapters that have started with 100. There are chapters that have started with 80. The largest chapter anywhere in the world is in Pensacola, Florida, which is somewhat of a surprise if you look at demographics. And if you know that we have a chapter in Fairfield County, Connecticut, and Palm Beach, Florida, and Sonoma, California, Chicago, you might be surprised. But in fact, they have more than 1,100 members.
Wow.
And on a single Sunday, give away $1.1 million.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. There's something that you're that you were just saying about eliminating barriers, that makes me want to turn to Ruth Jurgensen of the class of 1995. Ruth, you became CEO of Prep for Prep just this year in October 2020, 25 years after you graduated from Connecticut College. Congratulations on this great achievement. For our audience, Prep for Prep is a nonprofit educational organization that identifies promising students of color in New York City and then prepares them for success at independent preparatory schools throughout the Northeast, thus paving the way for success in highly selective colleges and universities. I read that you were attracted to this leadership opportunity because during the early part of your career as a teacher in an independent secondary school, your Prep for Prep students made a big impression on you. You said you were really inspired by their love and excitement for learning. You wanted to ensure that students of all income strata continued to have access to that kind of quality education. I just want to say for everyone, you know, the idea of Connecticut College was built on a core belief in access and opportunity. It's something that that's very powerful and part of, I think, the ethos of this college, foundational value. And it can be found in our strategic plan today with its central goal of full participation, which is a vision of an environment where all people have the opportunity to thrive, reach their potential, and contribute to the thriving of others. So Ruth, can you tell us how your early career as a teacher influenced your life path? And then I'd like to know how, as CEO, you're working to influence the paths of future leaders.
Well, I have to say, thank you so much for inviting me. I came because I wanted to meet these other amazing women and connect Prep for Prep with their organizations, to be honest. So I'm so happy to be here. And I think that's part of the job of CEO for sure, to ensure that the program can continue and thrive and change in ways that are necessary in a changing world. I actually was drawn to education and the power of education through an Upward Bound program at Con. And Art Ferrari, who was my sociology professor, you know, really encouraged me to participate as a counselor in Upward Bound. And, you know, it brought kids from all, you know, the surrounding cities to experience a college campus and college classes for the first time. And then we as counselors were mentors, and I stuck with that program and graduated from Con and was the director of the program, like the campus program, before going off to graduate school. So that was my foundation. I saw the impact that you can make on young people's lives if you provide a different trajectory, a different path, different resources, a different vision of what's possible. So I learned that at Con. So I attribute all of that effort to you and my campus experience. Educational equity is critically important. I went to public school up until, you know, third grade, and then went to parochial school and then to an independent school. And we know the resources that independent schools, particularly in New York City, have versus the public school education. So, you know, the founder of Prep for Prep was a teacher in the Bronx, and experienced kids who were academically motivated, but didn't have the resources to really thrive. And if you look at comparable experiences, it's true across the country, and we should all be paying attention to educational equity. It makes total sense that we should have fairness across our systems so that kids can access the resources that they need to succeed. And we can tell you what they are, and wealthy communities invest in their young people. And we should be paying attention to all young people. So Prep for Prep does that. And we are a tried and true organization and work tirelessly to ensure that the students that we admit have access to absolutely all the resources that that they need to succeed. And we have over 3,800 students and alumni who are making a difference, certainly in New York City, but across the country and across the world. So I'm so humbled to be the CEO, believe me. And anytime, I think of Connecticut College, I think about, the dorm life and the classes and the great friends that I still am in touch with. And I'm so glad this is not on campus, so I don't revert to my 19-year-old self, and I can continue to be professional and keep my job.
And you actually paid it forward in another way. I think as soon as you got your job, didn't you hire Jermaine Doris from the class of 2019?
We have 4 alumni who work at Prep, including me, and it's exciting to be in conversation. And we've connected with Con through career services and spoken to folks through that effort. So there is something in the water at Con to encourage, particularly students of color to find their way and give back. It was the first time that I really found a community to connect with people who looked like me. I felt really, really supported and encouraged and seen. And that's what we want for all students, right? And Con did that for me, so I have to give back. Wow,
that's very beautiful. And I think it connects to something that I want to ask Jessica Archibald about, from also the great class of 1995. Jess, you have taken a slightly different life path as the managing director of top tier capital partners in California, in the Bay Area, where you've been since 2005. Now, you and I have had the opportunity to speak on a few different occasions over the last few months. And there's part of our conversation that has stuck with me, and I want to ask you about it tonight. And it's about the influence of athletics on a life path. You were a very much heralded member of the women's rowing team at Con. You eventually were elected into Con's Athletics Hall of Fame, but you didn't come to Con with the intention of rowing. So I love those kind of serendipitous things that totally change your life. You shared with me the profound impact that experience of rowing had on your undergraduate path at Con. And so I'd like you to say a little bit more about the influence of athletics, what it had on your life journey, and how it's helped you to become a woman of influence.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm delighted to be here. Athletics has been a big part of my life kind of since Con. Like, I was not really into athletics. I was kind of a chubby kid through high school and was the soccer goalie because that was the easiest position. You didn't have to run a lot. And there was the coach at the time of the women's rowing club was a man named Klaus Walter. And he recruited any woman who had played a sport before and was over about 5'9" in height. And that was his tactic. And he would just pick the little athletics form that we would fill out in our paper application. And he just kept sending me letters and newspaper articles about the team and just seemed like a genuinely good person. And I grew up in the San Francisco area, went to a really small high school. Now I was going all the way across the country to a school that I actually never visited before I went. I chose Con because I wanted a small school. And with the application deadline, if you applied early decision, you got accepted before any of the other applications were due. So I was like, hey, I have to fill out one application. If I nail it, I'm done. And then my mom also attended the school. My aunt went to the school in the 60s. Step grandma had spent a year there. She was given a year to study away at college. And so I was like, hey, maybe there's this angle of this family plan. So Con took a chance on me, long story short, and I'm forever indebted for that opportunity. But this guy, Klaus Walter, I felt like, he's been so nice to me. He offered to pick my mom and I up at the airport. He offered to show me around. I was like, I got to give this guy at least an hour, right? Like, see what this rowing sport's all about. It's on the water, it's outside, seems like it'd be nice. And I ended up finding my closest friends through rowing, right? We don't have a Greek system at the school. So where's that sense of community, right? I was in a quad And so I had 3 roommates. We had not a lot in common, right? We're good friends now, but not a lot in common. So you show up as an 18-year-old all the way across the country. You're scared to death. But there's these rowers that you're just living these life experiences through those formative 4 years together, the ups and the downs, everything. So that to me was this kind of instant group of friends, right? They were kind of chosen for you like your roommates, but they were an instant group of friends. And then as I think of kind of rowing through con and then afterwards, I spent 8 years rowing competitively after con, same thing. That was my group of friends when I moved to New York and didn't know anybody. I had these group of women and the men's team as well that I could rely on. They became my closest friends, my closest confidants, the people that you would call when you're having a down day. What I had shared with President Bergeron was the first job I got, I was hired because I was an athlete. And I was hired by a guy who rowed at Brown University and quit because it was too hard. And so he wanted to hire athletes because they were used to getting yelled at for no reason. And he yelled at me every day. And as long as you didn't fight back, he didn't beat his kids or beat his wife. He yelled at you at the office, but it was okay, right? It was a different era that happened. It was on Wall Street in the 90s. It was part of the job, unfortunately. But it let me into this way of thinking that there's a different network you can belong to. We were not an Ivy League school. I didn't come from a network of, a big high school. Con, when I was trying to get a job in San Francisco, didn't have this huge alumni network. They thought we were UConn. So I found that athletics became that network for me to open doors. So it got me that first job. I went to NYU for business school, and the people there, I was a mediocre student. I should probably put that disclaimer out there, but they said, they're like, we brought you in for an interview because you're that rower. We didn't have any other applications of rowers. And so it wasn't the GPA or the GMAT scores that stood out. It was like, okay, I'm an athlete. The job I got out of college, it was with a professional tennis player who wanted to hire team sport athletes. So and then the job where I am now was for another rower who rowed for a couple of years and then quit because it was too hard. But the company that we've built now is a bunch of athletes, honestly. Some more serious than others. We've taken the tack that, at least on the investing side of our business, we want to hire team sport athletes. And we've since broadened that to not just athletes, but the notion of a team. I call them the coaches at Con College are the best references, because they're going to tell me, like, is this person hardworking? Are they coachable? Do they listen? Do they show up on time? Do they try to get better? Are they always trying to refine their craft? There's no perfect game. There's no perfect match. There's no perfect race. And so we've hired a couple folks from Con over the years. And like I said, their coaches are the best references because they don't do a lot of references either. So they'll tell you all the good gossip. And so that for me has been something that I think back on. What was the most influence that came out of Con for me was that network, that sense of community that, they gave me a chance. The rowing coach gave me a chance. As President Bergeron said, I'd never rowed before, but this guy took a chance on me and we had some good years together. So as I think back on Con, that's what I kind of gravitate to. Not to say that the academics weren't influential or anything like that, but it's certainly without the athletics, I think I would have been too homesick and I probably would have moved home, right? Because it was just day one network right there.
I do think that there is a certain quality of humility that you see in Con alumni. Have you noticed that? And there's one thing that you keep saying, oh man, not this, not that. You left one thing out. All those other people you worked for were quitters, but you never quit. So a
lot of people try rowing.
It might have been that they actually saw that in you. and no,
it's just the Con rowing coach would leave his office every time I tried to quit. To be honest, like it was, morning practice in the snow, like as long as there weren't standing ice floes on the Thames, we could go row. So I tried to walk down to his office and quit. He'd see me coming, holding my head down, and he'd leave the office. So it was serendipity, I guess.
That's very good. Well, I need to connect the dots here with what we were saying about giving back and to tell everyone that Jess is helping to influence a path for future athletes through her own philanthropy. Jess, you just made an amazing $1 million commitment to renew our waterfront as part of our athletics master plan. That is awesome. That is truly giving back. And we are so incredibly grateful to you.
Welcome.
So Liana, our third graduate from the great class of 1995, you are the Chief Marketing Officer at Skillshare, which is an online learning community where millions of members come together to find inspiration and take the next steps in their creative journey. So I was reflecting on the mission of Skillshare and the content of an interview you gave about a year ago in August 2020 to Authority magazine about your own professional journey, because this is certainly not the first position you've held. The article of that title was Why You Should Value Journey Over Destination. And what struck me was the uncanny parallelism to the purpose-driven ethos of our new curriculum at Connecticut College, which we call Connections. Connections, in a sense, is about teaching students to value the journey, unleashing their curiosity, showing them how to integrate all of their interests into a meaningful educational pathway that will carry them through college and into fulfilling and effective lives and careers. So I would love you to say a little bit more about what you mean by valuing your journey over your destination. What does it have? How does that play out in your life? And how has this perhaps helped you get to places that you never imagined you would arrive at?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I will say the class of 95 seems amazing based on the two women in this group. I'm actually from the class of 05. So I miss them by a couple of years, which is obviously my loss. So yeah, I graduated from Con certain that I was going to go to law school. I'd taken the LSAT, but I grew up in Puerto Rico and then in a very small town in Connecticut, and I was hell-bent on getting to live in New York City for a little bit. And so I took a job as a paralegal. And my dad at the time said, if you don't go to law school right from college, you're never going to go. And as is often the case with my dad, he was spot on. But I was a paralegal for a couple of years for a year. And when I became a paralegal, I remember thinking that marketing was not a career that people who wanted to be intellectually stimulated pursued. Right. And 18 months later, I was completely disabused of both notions. I ended up building a career in marketing. And 10 years later, I got a call from a recruiter that a cryptocurrency company was looking for their first executive marketing hire. And I turned them down and I said, Bitcoin is unicorn monopoly money. And luckily for me, they continued to sort of follow up. And, 4 years later, I was operating as the number 2 person at that company. And then I woke up one day and realized that, marketing and communications were the most fulfilling part of my job. And so I left my job as COO to become CMO at Skillshare, which a lot of folks thought sounded crazy. And I guess for me, my path has not been a straight one. And I have found that the opportunities that have been most challenging and most satisfying were the ones that were the least expected. And so for me, I think when you focus too much on the destination, you really limit yourself. Yeah. You become, sort of like those racehorses that have the things on the side of their eyes. You miss out on the world around you, and you miss out on opportunities that can really help you build to what you're meant to be. Because you're too focused on who you thought you should be.
Right.
And I think, this year has laid bare for all of us, or, last year, that it's impossible to predict what we or the world is going to look like and how any single decision is going to influence the rest of your life. But I think when you focus on the journey, you can control for things that really matter. Like, where am I going to learn the most? Where am I going to work alongside people that inspire me, that I believe in? And when you sort of go with that mindset, you really open yourself up to curiosity. So instead of being focused on reaching a specific destination, you focus instead. And by the way, I think this is a lot of what a con education is about. You focus on learning for the sake of learning. Yeah. And when you do that, you really have the ability to do so much more. You know, there are so many stories of folks, like there's the woman who's the CEO of, I want to say like Yum Foods or something, who started out as a waitress at Hooters. And every time somebody needed like the bathroom fixed or this, she would sign up to do all the things no one wanted to do. 5 years in, it was like, if you wanted somebody who knew how every part of the business worked, you went to her. That's a prime example of, she was just there to learn. And if you do that, worst case scenario, you come out having learned a lot. Best case scenario, you've positioned yourself to know more than a lot of other people in the room.
Fabulous speech. You're absolutely right. It's actually, you've crystallized what the value of the liberal arts are in that description. So let me turn to Alexandra Felfle from the class of 2010. I'm sorry, Liana, that I aged you inadvertently.
I mean, listen, I'll take it. I feel like if you think I'm older, maybe you think I look better for my age. So that's not a bad thing.
It was an error in the notes. So,
No worries at all.
so Alex, class of 2010, just a decade out of con. This year, now here's the drum roll, you became the Vice President of Global Corporate Banking at JP Morgan Chase. I mean, come on. I wish we had the audience here to do some serious cheering. And congratulations also on receiving the 2020 Mach Aram Class Award for your 10th reunion, an award that honors alumni for distinguished achievements in their profession or in society. So look, there's no doubt that your professional trajectory has been extraordinary. But what I want to ask you about today is connected in a way to my question for Wendy and also to Ruth and also in a way to all of them, the influence that comes from giving back. I'm thinking about the fact early on that you helped bring Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group to Connecticut College to help create influential internship opportunities for our students. And I think this year we had the largest cohort of con students who won these very competitive internships. So tell us why you think it's so important to give back in this way. And do you think that this philosophy has played a role in your own influence and success?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very honored to be surrounded by such incredible women. And I will start by saying that Connecticut College for me was all about, I was so grateful to be there. From the moment I got accepted to when I stepped on campus. And by the way, I also went to Connecticut College for the first time when I arrived as a freshman. I had not visited. I remember looking at the catalog and it said CC by the Sea. And I was like, this isn't really by the sea. I feel like this, but I'll take it. So I was very grateful to be there. And every single person that I encountered, the staff, my classmates, the administration, my teachers were such an inspiration to me and really taught me that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And the sky was the absolute limit. And they empowered me so much. And I took on many leadership roles while I was in college. And it was those tools that allowed me to, when I stepped out into the workforce, really understand that I was capable of achieving anything that I wanted to achieve. And I made it very clear that one of the things that was going to be a focus in my life and in my career was to give back to con that gave me so much. Mm-hmm. And I was able to land my first job out of Connecticut College through basically recruiting that came to campus. So I thought that was so valuable. And I knew that when I was in a position of any influence, when I was a professional, I needed to make sure that I could open those channels for students to be able to get those internships. And it wasn't an easy battle. And now that at MUFG, Connecticut College is like one of their core schools, you know, they've realized how incredible Connecticut College students are, how hardworking they are, how they think outside the box. And I feel incredibly proud and happy. And JP Morgan is next, when you know, where I am right now. And I think that one of the people that was very influential to my life at Con and that I thank for where I am today is, you know, Cheryl Banker. She was my career advisor. And I remember it was so hard. I was an international student. I needed to get a visa to be able to work in the US. And she never let me give up. She told me, Alex, there will be a lot of no's. You just need one yes. And she is this constant force in my life. And as I've moved from job to job and from promotion to promotion, I remember Cheryl, I remember my teachers, the administration, the deans. And I think Connecticut College is just this incredible place, this community that I'm so grateful to be a part of. And I always want to constantly give back to and create paths for people to be able to get into banking that is so difficult sometimes, and have a representation on the table.
I love it. And you have done so much already, and you've also given me the fantastic segue to the next set of questions that I wanted to ask, because these are going to be faster, more lightning round, but it's a really thing. I wanted you to think or tell us a little bit more about the influencers in your own lives, right? So for Wendy and Ruth, I'd like to know about in your life after Con, who has been most influential in your or for your career and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question because the list is so long.
Yeah.
My mom died when I was a kid, so my dad was hugely influential, and my grandfather. I went into the banking business because of my grandfather. And then the women I meet and the people working in nonprofits have all influenced my career in a huge way. But like Liana, it wasn't necessarily the straight path. It was a little zigzaggy. So a village. Yeah,
that's great. Ruth, what would you say?
First, I have to say to Alexandra, Prep for Prep and JP Morgan Chase have a terrific relationship, and we're honoring JP Morgan Chase at our Lilac Ball on June 15th for all of their incredible influence and impact on Prep for Prep. So I'm just so excited to see you and meet you as well. I have to say that the influence in my life, I think professionally, Phil Casson, who is the director of Little Red Schoolhouse and Elizabeth Orrin High School. I was a teacher there and left to teach at Miss Porter School, and then came back to the city, and the high school principal job was open, and he was actually encouraging of my application, and it changed totally the trajectory of my professional life, that he saw me as something different than I could see myself. Honestly, took some convincing. I was like, well, I guess I'll try this. There's no way I'm going to get it. And I did get the job, and it just changed the whole course of my life. And he has done that for many, many women, particularly women of color. And he doesn't acknowledge that, but it's something that he has had associate heads and heads of school that he's worked with, women of color, just really launch from his guidance and mentorship.
That's beautiful. Very beautiful. So Jess and Alex and Liana, and you actually talked about this a little bit, almost touched on this in some of your responses, but who, when you think about your time at Con, who would you say were your most influential mentors, or the people who were most influential to your future development? What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I would say that rowing coach. I think not only did he kind of take a chance on me, but he also did a really good job, I'd say, with the whole crew on trying to teach us how to handle ourselves, whether it was a win or a loss. And he always said, if you lose, say little; if you win, say even less. And He came in second place at the NESCAC championships 3 years in a row. And it was the most frustrating thing, but he always made us go up and shake everybody's hand afterwards. There were no tears. There were no throwing of things. There was like, hey, look, you got to be happy that you came in second, and did you do everything you could? And so I felt like that was an important lesson that you don't always get from especially from an athletic coach. And then the other thing that I honestly used this morning with some of my partners is, especially during COVID, right? There's all these negative things, and there's negative stuff in the press, and everything can get you down. And I remember repeatedly he would tell us, if we couldn't go row on the Thames and we had to go to the indoor facilities, which meant it was a harder workout, he'd always be like, by the time you get up there to the athletic center, I want you to tell me 3 positive things. And it would completely change your mindset. And it was like, okay, I'm not going to get frostbite tonight. I'm be done earlier so I can get up to Harris before the pasta is cold. And, I like whatever the third one is, right? We get to play music. But it would just completely change your mindset. And like I said, to this day, I use that all the time. And so I think those are things that no one class can teach you.
Yeah.
But hands down, that rowing coach was most influential.
Wow. Liana, what would you say?
Oh, I'm going to steal Wendy's statement that it was a village of folks. I have a group of 5 best friends that are still best friends from Con, and they, there's one group that's really close, but then I have this other best friend that's not as close. It's just, and they're the people when I'm struggling with something at work or thinking about taking a new job, they are or parenthood or relationships, like they are my committee, which I think has influenced my life tremendously. I would say, Mary Devins from Sisla, that I was a poor kid, and to be able to go abroad and have that experience and that independence was magical. But also just the community that she built in Sisla and the classes that I took there, classes that I would not have taken otherwise, that I think really, like Tristan Borer became my favorite professor. And I took her sophomore year at Sisla, and then took her basically every semester that I could. I was like, can I take the class again? I just want to sit in. So I think it truly was a village of folks at Con who made my experience there a really positive one, who helped me to think critically, which I think is such an important element of a liberal arts education that you carry with you forevermore, and to love learning, for the sake of learning and not just to get the A on the test.
Fabulous. And Alex, you already held up Cheryl Banker
yes.
as beacon.
Yes, for sure.
Who would you add to that list?
Oh my God. I mean, there is so many people and deans and professors and 2 people kind of stick out to me the most. And, Professor Archibald was huge for me. I think everybody was afraid of him. And I was like, okay, bring on the challenge. And I took every single one of his classes. And I think I am an incredible writer because of him. And I also think, Dean Andrea Rossi Reeder was also one of my biggest fans and would support me through everything I wanted to do. And I think, there's just, the list goes on. And my time in student government and my friends that were part of student government and how we pushed each other to be better and find solutions for the college were huge for me. And they became, just Jessica was saying, her rowing team. For me, I guess the more nerdy in me was my student government friends became my family. And it was, these group of people, and we just wanted the best for the college. And those are the people that have remained my really good friends and were always my cheerleaders and are still my cheerleaders to this day and in all my successes in my career. So yeah, but the list is long.
I love that because there are people who graduate from other places who could not actually name even a handful of people who had made that kind of impact on them in their time. So it's a beautiful testament to the culture that is very, I think, very special at Connecticut College. So I have a final question for all of you. just to kind of go around, and we'll then have some time to open it up to the things, the giant commentary that's coming through the chat. So of course you are more impressive now at the end of 45 minutes than I thought you were when you began, partly because there's a true authenticity that comes through everything each one of you is saying that I think really matters. It actually gets to the thing I want to talk about. You know, this time during the pandemic, and I think you were kind of referring to this, Liana, has made us all think about what really matters. It's a time that's made a lot of people actually quit jobs to move in entirely new directions because they took a look at their life, coming to a full stop and sort of saying, is this what I want to be doing? Maybe rethink, restart that journey that you were talking about, Alex. So I just want you each to say rather quickly, what's the best piece of advice you would give someone who's seeking to do what you've done, to do something that really matters in their own life?
I can go first. I think is to absolutely never give up and really have a strong focus of what you want to do, how you're going to get there, and just be absolutely relentless. I was told so many times that it was going to be so difficult, and, you know, being a woman in finance, being a minority, and I never listened. I just kept going, and I have gotten to where I am because I just had this like strong relentlessness that I was going to get there. And I feel like that would be my biggest piece of advice, and just not let anybody discourage you, and keep going towards that that goal. And the sky's the limit. You could be anything you want to be.
That's great. Wendy, what do you say?
Gosh, I agree with Alex's perspective. And I would say when you see a problem, don't think someone else is going to solve it. Don't think someone else who's more talented or has that pedigree that you don't have. Go out and solve it. And you may surprise people, but you might surprise yourself the most. Actually walking through the solutions that you see can change the world and change your own life.
Love it. Ruth, what do you say?
I would just say what I have said to students in the past: align your choices with the vision you have for yourselves. It's critically important. Just align your choices with the vision you have for yourself. Make sure you have a vision, and stick with that. You can do anything.
Now you said, I'm going to push on that because you just told us something really interesting, which is that you didn't envision yourself as a principal. So
yeah, not then. Yes, it's so true.
Yeah. So does it also mean
that
your vision has to actually keep changing? The vision for yourself has to keep changing along the way?
Well, I think vision is a feeling too, right? So it's not a position. It's more of an intention. Like, how am I going to use my life? And I've been working very hard to get to a point where I can work exclusively on behalf of communities of color. This is really important. That's the way I want to spend the rest of my professional life. Any energy and effort and any talent that I can bring, it's going to serve a community that looks like me. So it's just bigger than that. And you have to take those steps, and you do have to surround yourselves. And I'm so glad you asked us all about who was the most influential in your professional life. You have people who perhaps can see differently than you can. Listen to them too.
Yeah. Love that. Liana.
So it's what I said earlier, valuing journey over destination. The one caveat to that is I think you have to have a North Star. I think, and that North Star needs to be along the lines of what Ruth just said, values driven. And you need to be really tied to that, because I think there are times in life when decisions will come and they will make financial sense, or they will make on paper sense, and you can lose your way that way. And so for me, it's really being very clear that on my last day on this earth, here are the things I want to have accomplished, and then making sure that all of the decisions between now and then align to that outcome.
That's excellent advice. And our last panelist, Jess Archibald.
Yeah, I would say just tell as many people as you can what you want to do. You know, whether it's you're looking to move to a new location or go on vacation or find a new job. But I just feel like the more people you tell, the more relationships you're going to build, the more people who know what that vision or that North Star is, and just spread the word, and you never know what doors it's going to open.
Mm-hmm. And then you create your village. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you give back to Conn College.
No, I didn't put you last for that. Thank you. Thank you for
You did not set me up for that, but you got to give back, right?
No, this very exciting, and I'm wondering if Tori, you can help us with some of the commentary and questions, so that we have about 10 minutes for people to respond to things that have come in through the chat. Can you?
So thank you all. The chat has been buzzing nonstop for the last 40 minutes. There are not too many questions. It is praise and gratitude and utter excitement to be here learning from you all. I do have one fantastic question that came in that I think will close us out very nicely. But before I do that, I'm just going to flip the script on our distinguished Camel President Bergeron, because it's such a nice comment just came in here. And I do feel like I have to say it to the group, but this is from a very connected young alum. Katherine, you are one of the most influential people for me at Conn. Thank you for all you've done for the school. So I know that our entire campus community would echo those sentiments, and you know, our alumni community as well. But you are, in our eyes, fit in perfectly with this group of amazing women. So thank you for everything you do for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this has been one of the most inspiring hours that I have just spent. So I feel renewed in my own conviction and the North Star that I think Connecticut College is. So Tori, what's the last question?
Last question. I absolutely love these questions because they get my gears turning. So thank you to our alum who asked this, but it was, if you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be? I'm going to call on people, and I want to start with Liana.
I will say mine is, you're going to be okay. Less advice and more just like, I remember being a very anxious 18-year-old, you know, am I going to be okay? And I think I would just go back and say, it will not look the way you think it will, and it will be exactly what it was meant to be.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Just relax. It'll all work out in the end.
That makes no sense to an 18-year-old.
Do what your parents tell you to. It might actually be useful. Occasionally.
I would also say patience, you know, be patient and trust the process. And if something doesn't happen the way you think it should have, there's a reason for it, and you will understand later on. So that would be it for me.
Gosh, I would tell my 18-year-old self, it's okay to be authentically yourself, not try to fit the mold that you think exists out there and be something other than who you really are.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I don't know that I would tell my 18-year-old self really anything, because I like where I ended up. So let that past person be in the past.
Also, would your 18-year-old self have listened?
No, no, not at all.
You know, it is true. It's sometimes when we have reached a certain point, it's nice to realize that you don't actually have to be that age anymore. You don't even have to remember it. But it's the beauty and the kind of the joy and even the magic of education that we again and again bring young people to this place, and their lives are transformed because they come in contact with people like you. That is really what residential higher education is about. I've thought about that so much this year in the course of the pandemic, when we were constrained to be that kind of community. It only became more obvious how powerful that kind of education is, because it is the place where someone can come and take you by the shoulders. And it could be your rowing teammate, it could be your best friend in the next room, it could be Art Ferrari, it could be they look at you and they say, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and then you do it. And you do it because this trust that's in this space, in this community, and because there's something about Connecticut College where people open up and give themselves to be something else. They bring something about their openness to this place, and that is allows for transformation. So your stories are such a beautiful representation of what this college is about, and I couldn't be happier to have spent this hour with you. So thank you so much for who you are, what you represent, and bringing so much honor to your alma mater.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you
my
for having
gosh,
us.
thank you.
Great being here.
Thank you. And I want to assure all attendees that we will share the chat back with our panelists, because there's a lot of very personal comments and outreach to you all. So we will certainly share that back with our panelists, and they can hopefully be in touch with you all. Thank you. Please continue to join us for our reunion programs. And I'm heading into a happy hour with our 50th reunion class, the class of 71, who's going to be all jazzed up after this. So thanks, everyone.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Hi,
so
thank
much.
you.
Bye.